very honored to be asked to speak to this gathering to give a brief history of who May was, and it's hard to give a brief history of who May was because she was so much. May Arkwright Hutton was strong of spirit, enlarged in presence and in structure. Born in Ohio in 1860, the woman who was to become the symbol for suffrage in eastern Washington began life in a very humble manner. She lost her mother very early, and her father sent her to live with her grandfather when she was but 9. She was to live with him and care for him. But she was his housekeeper, but she was also his companion at the political meetings that he loved so much, and she got to listen to all these people. It helped to develop her sense of adventure and her love of politics at a young age. One young lawyer who lodged at their home shared his views that women should be granted equal economic and political rights with men. William McKinley later became president. She had a shortened childhood, but her lifelong priorities and values began to take shape during that time with her grandfather. She also learned how to cook and how to entertain during that time. Later in her life, she would continue to host influential people. Clarence Darrow and Theodore Roosevelt are examples of those who shared her table. She knew a good meal could open ears and minds. As a young woman, she came to the mining district of Idaho and soon became the best cook in the mining camps of Idaho, and later created her own tiny boarding house near the railroad. One of her best customers was a young man named Levi Hutton, who was a railroad engineer. He had been orphaned as a child as well, and they hit it off well together. They married in 1887 with May preparing their wedding dinner, and together they became emblematic of the dream of striking it rich. But it took years and years of hard work to make that happen. The time working in the mining district ignited her lifelong fire for the importance of unionism. Levi and May were in the center of a union uprising in 1899. Levi's train was used in a violent episode that landed him in the stockade with several other miners. But May got him out due to her influence, cajoling, and he was never convicted of a crime, but he did lose his job with the railroad. They invested their combined savings and bits and pieces that they had in a whole lot of sweat equity, which would become worth millions. Along with their partners, they owned the Hercules mine. Years of hard labor paid off in 1901 when the Hercules mine gave up a treasure trove that was the stuff of legends. It produced silver, lead, and zinc ore for 24 years. The Hercules mine is a major building block in this region's economy. One of their partners was August Paulson. You know the Paulson building downtown? May was a partner in the mine in every way. She would put on her overalls, not really a socially acceptable thing to do in her time, and go into the mine and work with the men after she had finished her day's chores. Levi and May were strong supporters of the labor movement still, and had little patience with those who mistreated their workers. The Huttons first built a home in Wallace, where they began their new life. Along with precious metals, the Hercules mine gave May another commodity, one that was perhaps more valuable. She found time. She was now able to hire help herself and didn't have to work the grueling hours. She made use of the time to read, to educate herself, to work even harder for the causes that meant so much to her. Carrie Chapman Catt was hosted at their home in Wallace. May was an advocate for the downtrodden, for unwed mothers, and for children. Women had the right to vote in Idaho in 1896. May ran as a Democrat for the state legislature in Idaho in 1904 and lost by only 80 votes. The mine owners raised $20,000 for her opposition. $20,000 in 1904. Think about that. In 1905, May joined the National Women's Suffrage Association and attended its convention in Portland. But in 1906, the Huttons moved to Spokane, and it was a whole different story. Women didn't have the right to vote in Washington yet. May, being May, fought tirelessly to change the situation. She felt that the ballot in the hands of women would do more to raise the standard of citizen than all other reforms together. She became the vice president of the Washington Equal Suffrage Association, and in 1908 fought for a plank in the platform at the National Democratic Convention in Denver.
About that.
This plank would enfranchise all voters regardless of sex, race, or color. Obviously, she didn't prevail, but she kept working. Women in Washington won the suffrage in 1910, but it was not a smooth road. There were huge conflicts between May and those who didn't understand her style or her tactics. But May kept on working and fighting in her own unique way, and we are all the better for it. She created her own organization, the Washington Political Equality League. She preferred the persuasive to the militant. Our campaign in Washington is an appeal, not a fight. We never allow our workers to be abusive to the men. Soon after the vote was won, May lobbied in Olympia for an 8-hour workday for women. And in 1912, she and 3 other women were delegates to the State Democratic Convention in Walla Walla. She then continued to the National Convention in Baltimore. Unheard of. On the way home, she stopped off in Iowa to help out the women working for suffrage there, on the way.
What's the nice thing about the train?
They first lived in an apartment at the top of their building downtown. The home here was built in 1914. They quickly realized that they didn't need all the land that they had bought and gave part of the land to create this very park that we are now enjoying. So we are enjoying the fruits of the Hercules mine right now. And just 5 months after it was built, it was remodeled to accommodate a ballroom on the 3rd floor. But I don't think was never finished. Sadly, she passed away a year later at 55 from Bright's disease in 1915. Levi Hutton would go on to create the Hutton settlement after May's death. While I was preparing for this event, I spent time reading some of May's many, many letters that are on the Washington Women's Consortium site. It's amazing. It is an amazing resource, and I would really, really encourage anyone to go there. I came away from it with this whole image of May in my head, of her just zigzagging across the state in her motor car and doing this and doing that and giving speech after speech in every little town. It just gave me a window into her world. And she did this all with declining health, but she kept on and kept after her goal. She would encourage and cajole her fellow suffragettes, sometimes even paying their membership fees or travel expenses, so they would have no reason not to attend. It was there that I found a letter that made me feel that she would approve of what we are doing here today. In a letter to an unnamed organization, she said, "Conservation of our forests and protection of our winged songsters appear to need concerted action." She then goes on to describe a plan to use soldiers during peacetime to plant trees and fight fire. May laments while describing a trip along a mountain trail where she found dead birds, victims of some boy's cruel sport. She talks about the need to stamp out such tendencies before the boy grows up to be a bully, if not a criminal. Planting trees would be a good way to create nurturing tendencies instead, she suggests. In closing, she says, "No doubt some of my elder readers can remember a tree they planted in childhood, which now may be a great oak, ash, or willow. I remember such a one, and although the old home is gone and its inmates are scattered, the willow's graceful branches still sway in the soot-laden breezes of a great commercial city and provide shelter under which the songbirds still nest. Let this tree that we plant today become a great shelter for the birds that May so loved." May, thank you for everything, and as you would often close your letters, yours in liberty.